All right. Welcome to the study group. Welcome, Chuck.
Thank you, Derek.
Welcome, everyone at home. Today, we're going to be talking about self-mastery and the path towards self-mastery. Obviously, we haven't mastered ourselves yet, but we do have a good example and a teacher in Jesus and the Spirit of Truth. And we're going to kind of discover some of the gifts that we're given and some of the achievements that we can accomplish along the way of self-mastery.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. So here with this image, here's Jesus speaking to the apostles, and he says, "Verily, verily, I say to you, he who rules his own self is greater than he who captures a city. Self-mastery is the measure of man's moral nature and the indicator of his spiritual development." So I like this painting because the apostles, there's a quality of attention coming from the apostles here, where they're like, the one guy's rubbing his chin and they're like kind of squinting and leaning in. It's like, what is he saying? Right.
Yeah.
And verily, verily, I looked that up, and that means like just affirming emphatically the truth of what's about to be said. So this is a figure of speech that Jesus used when he really wanted to get the attention of the apostles. He's going, "Verily, verily, I say to you," right? Mm-hmm. And here he's saying something that is totally contradictory to what they're used to culturally, where a person is great if they can capture a city or have, rule an army or whatever. And he's saying, no, that's not real greatness. Real greatness comes from spiritual growth. Yeah. So that's what we're going to be talking about here.
Yeah. Okay, well, spiritual growth is kind of reflective of personality in a whole, as a whole growth. Mm-hmm. And we're going to, I guess, break down the path to the complete self-growth.
Right. So
obviously we said none of us are completed with this path, but it's something that, we pulled out of the Urantia book that kind of are clear markers and indicators of levels of accomplishment or attainment.
Right. So this slide here, this is kind of a map of where we'll be going today. These are stages or achievements along the way to self-mastery. And one of the things that I find very interesting about our process in this is that we can look to Jesus, refer to him as the master. So that's kind of an echo of the sort of master-apprentice relationship that's been part of culture for a long, long time, where there's people in our midst who have mastered something and you can learn from them. But with self-mastery, it's kind of interestingly different because it's unique for each of us. But we can look to Jesus. He mastered being human in his own way, unique way, and he shows us how we can also do that. So it's not about rote learning or practicing something over and over again until you get it perfect. It's more about this discovery of your potential to make achievements based on your own unique qualities and gifts. So that's kind of what this is about. So these achievements along the way, I mean, at the very beginning of this entire process, there has to be a spiritual awakening, because it's the Spirit that really teaches us and guides us in a way that has enduring value going into the universe and going forward. And then the 7 psychic circles, the Urantia book has given this kind of map of development. In some ways, it mirrors maps in other bodies of teaching. But in the Urantia book, they've given us some pretty specific instruction about this, that we, someone from the outside could look at a human being and say, oh, well, they've made it thus far. And they have more to do. And what that consists of, it gives us a conceptual framework, in other words, to think about our own development. And the 3rd circle is a major milestone along the way, and we'll see why that's the case. And then finally, this whole process has to do with what is referred to as becoming more real. I mean, we might think, well, I'm pretty real already. How can I be more real, right? Mm. But there's this idea of becoming more real has to do with your reach into the world, into reality, and also within yourself, your reach for God. So we grow inwardly in our relationship to God, but we also grow in our abilities and achievements in the world as well. So both of those go together to, in a sense, make us more real. So we'll look at that more closely as we go along.
All right. Thanks, Chuck.
Mm-hmm.
This idea of becoming more real. That's a cool one.
Yeah, I like that. It's kind of provocative. Kind of makes you think. What are they saying? What does that mean? How could I be more real than I am already? Right.
Right. But as we know, we're growing our soul, and that's really the real stuff. And so as that grows.
And our survival into the next life depends on it.
Right. Okay, well, let me just get going with this.
Sure.
First
Yeah,
quote.
Go for it.
So from paper 143, your secret of the mastery of self is bound up with your faith in the indwelling spirit, which ever works by love. So kind of growing in this faith of this relationship of familiarity with the indwelling spirit, with God, and becoming more familiar with his presence in a loving nature, a loving quality, of recognizing that and growing with that.
And we become more loving as a consequence.
As we align with that. And then spirit alliance liberates choice from the physical level, and at the same time assures the divine stability produced by augmented universe insight and increased cosmic comprehension. So this kind of stabilizing goodness of the vision of the plan of the cosmos, of life itself. It's as you grow more in alliance with spirit, then reality presents itself in your inner life, where there's a comfort in the faith of knowing what you know. And that is what you've felt through truth in this conviction in your inner life. And that is that you're a child of God, which is a family that is more expansive than just the material reflection of what family or a network might look like. But you still have a realization, a conviction in your heart of what that is, who you are within that, and how you're growing in love in that.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I like about the way that second quote is expressed is that it introduces this idea that we have the capacity to form an alliance with spirit. And I like the use of the word alliance there, because that implies active engagement from both sides. It's like when you're in alliance with somebody, and whatever it might be, you're contributing and they're contributing. And your combined contributions, your combined efforts are what produce the results. So the idea that spirit can be an active player in our lives, if we also seek that, desire that. Okay, I want to partner with spirit, essentially, is what they're saying here. And that's not a passive thing. It's not just like sitting in a lotus position all day, waiting to be told what to do, right? Or trying to achieve mystical states or something. It's about actually engaging with life in a real alliance with spirit that loves. There's this desire to make life better on this world. And that's motivated by love, which comes from the spirit. So we can become part of that project. So I like looking at this almost like a project in a sense.
And love is the form of engagement, the avenue of engagement, because if you're staying isolated, like you're talking about on some mystical mountaintop, you're essentially just loving yourself, or like in love with yourself or something like that. But if it's the real outward workings of love, then like the spirit's hand, like the angels or whatever, it's being socially applied.
Yes, right. And we grow. I mean, there's times when maybe we do need to be alone with God. Jesus did that. He'd go off in the hills. I mean, not that there isn't a place for that, but the purpose of that is to become more fully conscious of this alliance, where you just focus your attention on God and in spirit for a while, and grow in your capacity to receive that guidance and that awareness. And then you come back, and then you can serve more effectively. And I like how they express it in terms of these qualities that we can achieve that involve augmented universe insight and increased cosmic comprehension. So both of those are referring to a greater frame where our thinking takes place in a greater frame.
An expanded framework.
Right. Our desires are understood in a larger frame, where there's not just humans, there's like a whole universe here that's, that we contribute, we can make real contributions to the betterment of reality on all levels. So
Yeah, from my experience, a lot of it is based on my loyalty to, the inner happenings, my truth convictions, my convictions of vision. If I can complete those visions into decisions that have been completed,
right,
then, it's not like I'm having to look for ghosts or fairies or angels or anything like that. It's like I have my assignments, and as I do them, more come.
Right.
And it's this kind of creative, supremely creative group work.
Right.
And it's very unique and personal, but as personally as I grow, I find the reach of my expressions influence more people.
Exactly. Right. There's a greater integration or a greater reach or connection that is, well, it's interesting because these spirit ministries are always with us. We don't have to even doubt or question that. We can't see angels, and we can't even see God, but we can feel the presence of these spirit resources, these endowments, these gifts, these spirit. They're often in the book they're referred to as endowments. They're like gifts. Okay, here's the divine spirit of God. We're going to put this in your mind, so it's always there, trying to break through into your consciousness to give you these picturizations of possibility and higher achievements that are value inspired rather than just materially inspired. And then we have the assistance of the angels on the outside. And then we have the spirit of truth sort of enveloping us and always being with us, giving us that companion presence of Jesus. So all these work together for these purposes. But there's a growth in our capacity to receive these endowments and make them more real in our, like a relationship, actually having a living relationship.
Yeah. I'd say maybe one of the challenges of making these gifts real is to get outside or get beyond the material examples that you've seen of divine gifts. So maybe in our culture, it's like you talked about, the hero in our culture is still very materialistic in seizing a city, sacking a city, being a superhero type of thing.
Yeah.
And then being gifted the great hammer from Thor and the gods and like destroying everything instead of doing that self work and being loving and what that does to an individual and a person. And even we talked about in one of our podcasts on loyalty about true heroism is that loyalty to the truth conviction in one's heart. And that's the real heroic self-mastery work.
Right.
And we all kind of start with this similar opportunity in spirit. And then how we then choose to engage to work with spirit is then how we start growing to becoming more real. And we have our examples here in material. We can go from preschool to senior year of college or whatnot.
Right. That's similar.
But we still are asked to start to see how these are scaffolding. These material examples is just scaffolding for what our spiritual curriculum and evolution is and growth path is, and not to get so caught up in those material
external
examples of what they are. So
standards.
Maybe if I could just kind of go into this next quote and this idea of kind of like what we all do start with, and then where we're going in regarding the 7 psychic circles.
Right.
So as kind of our curriculum path. So in the Urantia book, it says, you start out in your mind of mortal investment in the 7th circle and journey inward in the task of self-understanding, self-conquest, and self-mastery. So this like inward growth, when we look at like the material development, maybe you attain more things, but this inward path, journey, a journey inward, even the hero's journey inward, right? Is that in this development from self-understanding to self-conquest and then self-mastery. So it's not like you go right into self-mastery. It's how can you if you don't even know what's going on inside of you? And being a human, it's quite a complicated thing.
Just to know yourself.
Yeah, just to
even
know
understand what we are.
Yeah.
Who we are, what we are, why we're here. All this huge, so-called big questions loom, in in our path as we try to go forward. Why am I even doing anything at all, right?
Why am I here?
So we get answers and realizations along the way that help to satisfy that. And this inner journey then is reflected in an outer reach that's actually helpful and useful.
Yeah, just got me thinking about, here, I'll read this next quote and then I'll say it, but the psychic circles have to do with personality status, mind attainment, soul growth, and adjuster attunement. The successful traversal of these levels demands the harmonious functioning of the entire personality, the whole self, material, intellectual, and spiritual. And it got me thinking about this inward growth in this connection with soul development, completion of decisions, working with spirit, and this outward reach as these circles, kind of expanding. Kind of like what I was talking about earlier. It's like the more I grow, the more I see that my authentic expressions, the influence of them reach greater, further.
Right. It's like dropping a pebble in a pond. The ripples grow out.
And so as you ascend these levels, it's almost like you've shown loyalty enough that we can be trusted to influence in greater or larger spheres of influence.
Yeah. And a lot of it is just practice. We spend our whole life here practicing being ourselves and trying to be useful in some way or another. And that practice pays off. And that's where experience comes in. You have to try stuff. You have to make decisions, try to complete the decisions, see what goes wrong. If you failed here, maybe even completely, you pick yourself up, you go inside, within, with God, have a talk about it. Okay, where are we going here? Where are we really going? Let's try again. Let's grow and make this happen. We can have that kind of inner support and encouragement while we're trying to master the difficulties of the outside world. And those kind of grow in parallel. They go together. So this idea of having a balanced development of material, being physically healthy, keeping your body in some reasonable condition, so that you're not in too much pain and suffering, so you can actually function in the world. That's super important. And having sound understanding, our intellectual development, having a real grasp, even of the affairs of the world, is part of this. And also then, of course, growing an understanding in our relationship with God. That our understanding of God grows through our relationship with God. So making that reach real, making that personal, talking to God, recognizing the presence of this divine personality who goes back to the creation of all things, is right there for us all the time. That's such a profound fact, but it requires the exercise of effort and desire to make that a reality. And that's part of what this is about also. So here, this next slide is about reaching the third circle. And this is a major milestone. And we'll see why when I read this. They say that when a mortal mind breaks through the inertia of animal legacy and attains the third circle of human intellectuality and acquired spirituality, a personal angel, in reality too, will henceforth be wholly and exclusively devoted to this ascending mortal. And then they go on to say there is an unmistakable improvement in all phases of cosmic achievement and spiritual development subsequent to the assignment of the personal seraphic attendant. So what this is a marker in our development where we break through the inertia of animal legacy. Way back, we did a presentation, a podcast about the vestigial traits, that we bring along with us from our evolutionary origin, as an animal species. And a lot of our challenges in this life have to do with overcoming the vestigial kind of carryovers from our evolutionary origin. So this third circle, among other things, is a marker of when we begin to get some control over that, some mastery over that we can break through inertia and actually exercise initiative that's original within ourselves. And that's a big, big stage, because it's the transition in life from being reactive, where you're just always reacting, to having initiative, where you can step back and say, okay, I've talked to God about this, and this is what we're going to do. And this is a whole new original thing that we're going to try to achieve. That's not it may be a reaction to perceived need in the world, but it's original in its attempt to create a positive adaptation to those needs. So when we reach those kind of levels where we become more self-directing or self-acting, then we need more attention from the seraphim, because we're going to have more of a reach into the world. The things we do are going to have more of an influence. So they need to be watched over more because of the potential consequences of the things that we then become capable of doing.
Both good and bad consequences.
Yeah, it can go both ways. Both ways. So, and that's part of the reason why seraphim are assigned to keep an eye on us and guard us, even from the consequences of our own decisions and doings that we then learn from. But there's a redirecting, there's a coordinating, there's a correlating influence in all of that.
That's why it's so important to this idea of growing in love and being more loving. It's kind of this earmark for your growth of self-mastery in your moral character, the way that you can love and serve, in that that's what is required to be able to have that real sustainable reach or something out. You know what I mean? You get clearance to be able to broadcast out further your service ventures. Right.
Especially if it's love motivated. I mean, part of what we're all dealing with all the time is overcoming fear with love. That's kind of the project of this lifetime in many ways. And especially in a world like this, it's been so, damaged by events in the past. So this potential that we have to be love dominated rather than fear dominated kind of turns a corner when we reach the third circle, that we're less. So the reactive approach to life is kind of fear dominated. In other words, if I don't take advantage of this opportunity or react a certain way that's socially approved on the outside or whatever, I might be in danger. People might not like me or whatever. Who knows what it is? But there's kind of a kernel of fear within the reactive approach to life, where your goals and decisions are determined by external factors. Whereas when you realize that you can originate from the inside, then you get this flow of love welling up from God. This is a loving universe. This is a friendly place. And there's like good things that can be done. Let's make this a loving world, not a fearful world.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal to kind of turn that corner.
Yeah. Let's read the next one.
Yeah. So this next one is kind of maybe the summary consequence of all of this, which is this idea of becoming more real in a universe sense or in a value sense. In other words, becoming more enduring is also wrapped up in this.
We could have called this podcast "Keeping It Real," perhaps.
Keeping it real, yeah.
That's the whole point: is to keep that connection with what's real,
and becoming that ourselves. So here they say the degree of selfhood reality is directly determined by circle conquest. Persons become more real as they ascend from the 7th to the 1st level of mortal existence. Circle attainment always augments the potential of human success and mortal achievement. So that's the kind of the tie-in with the world. And then finally, action, completion of decisions, is essential to progressive kinship with the Supreme Being. So in Urantia book terms, the Supreme Being is kind of the emerging deity that's emerging as a presence through us and through the personalities that are learning and growing through experience. It's the God of experience, as opposed to the Father who lives within, which is the God of creation, in a sense, that goes back as the first source and center. So we can contribute to this emerging deity of experience that the Urantia book refers to as the Supreme Being through our own achievements and our contributions to this project, which is just, unbelievable in scope. When, you look up at the sky and you see all those stars out there. Well, yeah, what's going on here? This is like, that's part of the Supreme. It's about all of that, bringing God into reality in the actual manifest universe. So we each have a role to play in that may be very important and unique. We each have our little piece, our little part to contribute to that. And it may not be little, who knows? But I like how this balances the inner with the outer, the spiritual, the inner spiritual development with the reach into the world in positive ways through service is kind of what this is all about.
Yeah. I also like how it gives you a path to process instead of coming from this scarcity state where you just want to achieve some state, like you want that car, you want that house, you want that lifestyle, whatever it is. But this is giving you an on-ramp into engagement and interactivity with an interface that's inner, but it allows for accomplishment and growth and achievement in a way that then does yield those things that are fruitful in the material life. But if the focus can be on that inner engagement, that inner interface that you're engaging through, then I'll say that the end user will be most happy with what comes out of that character development.
Yeah, right. And in this last one, there's this little kernel, this little piece that you mentioned earlier, which has to do with the completion of decisions. I mean, I can speak to this from my knowledge of myself, how tempting it is to make grand decisions and then pat myself on the back and feel, wow, that was a great decision. I think this is what I'm going to do. And then like the next day, it's like vaporware or something. So there's the completion of decisions. So that phrase, when I first read that, completion of decisions. Oh yeah, that's kind of important.
Yeah, don't let it just like ideas will grow in my mind and in my heart, and then they'll ferment or something, and it'll be ripe, and it'll be time to, harvest that idea.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't get seized upon when the time is right, when the fruit is ripe, then it spoils, and there's regret, resentment, what
disappointment,
and then an overimportance on the next vision or like that. But that's why it's like really good to live by, for me, to like, the Lord provides as I use. So don't leave anything on your plate, because it's not going to get refilled if you're still leaving stuff on the plate.
Yeah.
And it's all good stuff anyway. So just eat it and then share accordingly. But like I was saying earlier, like if I have a vision and I don't act on it and complete it to some level, and it's all based on me completing it, not based on whether I win an award for it.
Right.
So it's just me completing it. I'm fulfilled by knowing I did what I set out to do, that what I saw, I completed, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And then that's where then there's a capacity that grows for a new thing to come in.
Right. Then you can build on that.
Yeah. Or it's enlarged from what you just completed. Something like is expanded upon.
Yeah. Right. There's another place in the book where they say something like, the weak indulge in resolutions, but the strong act. And this is kind of echoing that idea that it's action, completion of decisions is how we achieve kinship with this emerging reality that we're all part of, in a positive way.
Yeah. And as you become more aware and intimately associated with loving action, then that's really where you start stringing victories together for everyone, for you, the Supreme, for everyone else, where you're now like in a zone, so to speak, where victories are coming out a lot because you know what to tune in. If you're still butting heads through the material archways into the spirit, you're going to butt your head a lot, and there's going to be feeling like this struggle. Yeah. So starting with the inner temple.
Which can be discouraging sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
But with this, I feel better. Thank you, Chuck, for laying this out, having an opportunity to see a way to engage in real achievement or accomplish real achievement that I can feel comfortable in and satisfied in my own development without it having to be compared to anybody else's achievements.
Right. And this is not to say that sometimes we do have to change our minds about things.
Sure.
I mean, I can make a decision and think this is a good idea, but then maybe I learn more about it, or I can improve that decision so that it can be more easily, not easily necessarily, but more likely to be fulfilled, that it's actually fulfillable. Because sometimes we could make decisions that are even impossible to really achieve out of, whatever motivations. But those are still kind of a clue, an indicator of where we want to go. So then to modify that and work with the spirit, talk to God, talk to the angels or whatever it takes, feel this presence of the Spirit of truth guiding us, Jesus's companionship as having been human. He understands all these things, the difficulties we're up against. So sometimes we have to adjust our decisions, but always in mind to make it fulfillable, so that it's something we can actually do and accomplish. And then we've got a platform that for the next decision, right. that can build on that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting balance between not identifying with your accomplishments so that there's space for new growth, new achievements that can be made. And then not identifying with your failures either. Like if some venture didn't work out, there is an identity on that either.
Right.
Just having faith in this abundance of the well providing new creativity to come through.
So if you have a failure, you can seize the identity of someone who keeps trying. Someone who picks themselves up and tries again, as opposed to the identity of someone who's just in defeat or whatever.
Yeah.
So all of these experiences can be interpreted in a way that encourages this kind of development. And we know God, like a good parent, is always has our back and wanting us to succeed.
Yeah.
Wanting us to be fully realized and a source of love going out into the world.
All right. Well, thanks for this study. Hopefully it fortifies you guys and empowers you to go out there and complete some decisions lovingly.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks, Chuck. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone at home. Thanks, Kitty. And we'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks for joining us.